to the Mainly Moonology podcast. I'm your host, Yasmin Boland, an award-winning astrologer and the Sunday Times best-selling author of books including Moonology and creator of the Moonology Oracle cards. My intention for this podcast is to help you understand how you can create your dream life using mainly Moonology, the moon, as your guide. Okay, so let's talk about the super full moon in the sign of Aquarius that is taking place this week. And full disclosure, I am actually going to be reading you from my Moonology Diary 2023, which is now well and truly sold out. But if you would like to get your hands on the Moonology Diary 2024, you still have time. And if you order before the end of the week, you will get some amazing bonuses. For that diary, just go to www.moonologydiary2024.com. Okay, so what about this full moon this week? Well, for a start, and again, I'm reading from my Moonology Diary, this is the date and time of this full moon. In London, it's going to be taking place on August 1 at 7:30 p.m. Sydney, it's going to be taking place on August 2 at 4:31 p.m. In LA, it'll be taking place on August 1 at a very civilized 11:31 a.m. And in New York, August 1 at 2:31 p.m. So I will be doing a full moon ceremony on the HayHouse Facebook page and on my Yasmin Boland Moonology page. So if you want to have a full moon ceremony with me, they're free and I'd love you to join me. Let's talk about, or let me read, I just thought I'd read from the diary this week because it's my Moonology Diary for next year's coming out this week. And I just thought, why don't I highlight what's in the diary? So the key words and ideas for this lunation, okay, as I said, it's a super full moon in Aquarius. And here are some of the key words. Speak your truth. That's always a big one. Speak your truth. And I will say, especially if you've had a sore throat lately, can mean you're not speaking your truth. So speak your truth. Here's a good one. Slow down. In fact, let's all just now take a deep breath and slow down. So breathe in through your nose. Hold. And breathe out through your mouth. Slow down. All right, what else? Make an effort. Make an effort. That's a good one. Make an effort. I'll go into all of these in a minute. And another one, try your luck. Try your luck. Okay, so I'm about to read you the information about the full moon from the diary. But before I do, I just want to mention on social media, I saw someone asking, are there 2 full moons in August this year? And the short answer is, yes, there are. And I'm sorry I didn't reply to that message because I wanted to check. I thought they were, but there are. Yes, there are. Okay, so from the diary, this full moon is the first of 2 full moons in August. So almost this month for us. And it's a super full moon. Okay, so a new or a full moon that is a super moon closely coincides with perigee, the moon's closest point to Earth in her monthly orbit. So it's a super full moon. And I will just say, it's not really astrology. You know, the ancients who taught us about astrology, we still, rely on them. They didn't talk about super moons back in the day because they're not really astrological. Astrology is about reading the sun, moon, and stars. It's not really about astronomy, and the super moon is an astronomical thing, but people get excited about it, so we mention it these days. There are 4 to 6 super moons a year, so that might surprise you. You might think they're this rare thing, but there are always 4 to 6 super moons every year. And I've written here in the diary, although they have no real astrological significance, it's literally what I just said, people tend to get quite excited about them, not least because the moon appears so much bigger and brighter in the skies at the time of a supermoon. So I think it's fair to say that this full moon, being a supermoon, is definitely going to be very beautiful to see and definitely worth getting out to have a look at. Okay, so supermoons are perhaps more impactful if they affect your own personal birth chart. Okay, so to find out if it's affecting your birth chart, go to www.moonmessages.com/free chart and download your chart for free, and then have a look at where Aquarius is in your chart. And then you'll start to get a sense of whether or not this full moon is affecting your chart. At the time of this particular full moon, Mercury, the planet of communications, is actually going to be making an opposition to Saturn. Okay, so let's just unpack that for a second. Mercury, planet of the mind, communications, how we speak, how we think. Okay, clashing with Saturn, the lord of karma, the dreary, tedious planet that is always sort of getting into arguments and telling people what to do. It's not that nice an energy, to be honest, especially if you're in a bit of an argument with someone. But on the positive side, it is a good time to be very firm with someone if you need to be very firm this week. And also it's a good time to speak your mind in a kind of a stern, firm kind of way. Kind of a good time to lay down the law, or even if you have a legal issue looming, it's not a bad time to be getting legal advice. It's also a good time to just say your piece, because people are going to be listening. People are going to know you're serious. When Mercury opposes Saturn, people do tend to get quite serious, or to have that very difficult conversation that you've been putting off, because Saturn's all about difficulties, Mercury's about communications. Put them together, especially at the time of the full moon, and you get a very good time to have that hard conversation. So that's why I said focus on speaking your truth. Saturn actually covers the truth as well. Mercury's about speaking. So do focus on speaking your truth while not hurting the feelings of the person you're talking to if you possibly can. So that's a really important factor as well this week under the super full moon in Aquarius. Just remember, it's all very well speaking your truth. It's all very well us all speaking our truth. But I've always felt we have to be very mindful of the impact that our words are having on someone else. So, it's all very nice to say, well, I'm just speaking my truth, and too bad if that upsets you. That's not the way to good karma at all. So focus on speaking your truth while not hurting the feelings of the person you're talking to. And by the same token, don't let anyone bully you right now, okay? Because Saturn can be a bit of a bully. Mercury's a planet for communications. It could be a time where someone is kind of bullying you a bit. So really the best thing to do to deal with all these potential issues under the full moon is to really get in a strong mindset. And you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Meditate, meditate, meditate. I just keep giving out that message, and I just keep trying to meditate every single day because it's so powerful. And honestly, one of the best things you can do for yourself this week is to meditate, because it will help you get mentally balanced. And that's kind of almost the best possible outcome under this Mercury-Saturn opposition that we've got. And also, if you're quite mentally strong, strength being another word for Saturn, mentally being another word for Mercury. So if you're quite mentally strong right now, other people are not going to be able to bully you. All right. So it is about also being mentally disciplined being another Saturn word. If you're speaking to someone and it's making you feel bad or less than, do think about this. Try to use some humor to diffuse the situation. I mean, obviously there are going to be times when humor is inappropriate, but if it's at all appropriate, think about using some humor to diffuse the situation. That's because there is also a very lovely Mars-Jupiter alignment taking place this week, okay? Mars in the sign of Virgo is making what's called a trine aspect to Jupiter in the sign of Taurus, okay? So that's taking place around the time of the full moon. Let me just check if it's it's literally just a couple of hours afterwards. So it will be influencing the flavor of the full moon. And, even though we have that Mercury-Saturn energy, which is not that easy to deal with necessarily, and it actually comes later, if you can bring a bit of humor into the situation, if emotions do start to run a bit high, which they do tend to do under the full moon, if you can bring a bit of humor into the situation, you may find that the whole Mercury-Saturn thing is easier to cope with. So it's really a case of see if you can lighten the mood a little bit, and you should find that any difficulties you're experiencing are going to be a little bit easier to handle. Another thing to be aware of this week is that the planet of love and abundance, Venus, is still retrograde, and she will be retrograde at the time of the full moon. In fact, Venus is going to be retrograde now between now and September. So it's still very much time to weigh up what really matters in your life. Now, this really is the major message of Venus retrograde, and I'm just going to give you another little URL for you. This is my free Venus retrograde mini course. It's just 3-part, and then there is an invitation at the end to do the full paid course if you want to, but you'll get a lot out of just the free one if that's all you want to do. That's moonmessages.com/VR, so V for Venus and R for retrograde, moonmessages.com/VR. Really, this time is about re-evaluating what matters to you, who's important to you. Are you living your life in accordance with what's really important to you? Are you working too hard? Are you not working hard enough given what you want to do in life? Weigh up what's important, re-evaluate everything, and whatever else, don't be too proud to let someone know if they matter to you, okay, and you haven't been showing it. If you haven't been showing someone that they matter to you and they do matter to you, then now is the time to let them know. Now, every full and new moon in my Moonology Diary in 2024 and in 2023, you actually get a little exercise to do. And because it's the week of the publication of the Moonology Diary 2024, I'm going to share with you the exercise that I've given for this full moon. Normally I wouldn't, because I think, well, people bought the diary. I'm not just going to share it around, but let's do it. So it's called Fire and Ice. Okay, so this is actually a really good one. Okay, so kind of a little ritual. At the time of the full moon, find somewhere that you can light a small fire, okay? At the time of the full moon, find somewhere you can light a small fire. I have a little metal portable fire pit that I use, but a ceramic fireproof dish works equally well, for example. Have some ice on standby. Okay, so you want to have somewhere where you can light a little fire pit or a fireproof bowl, and some cubes of ice. Now, using some paper, some wood, whatever you've got to burn, light a fire, and once it's burning, put the ice on a plate and speak into it, telling it everything you are letting go. So I'm just going to say that again. So light the fire, okay, and once it's burning, turn your attention to the ice and speak into it, telling it everything you are letting go. Imagine your words falling onto the ice and imprinting it, okay? There you go. Then either hold the plate of ice near the fire so that the ice melts, okay? Or actually slide the ice onto the fire itself as much as you can without putting the fire out, so that the ice cubes are in the fire and they melt. Visualize the words dissolving as the ice melts away, and with that you are letting go, okay? You are letting go. So give it a go. Give it a go. Maybe I will try and remember to do that for my full moon ceremony, which I'll be doing on Facebook and Instagram. So also from the diary, how to work with this moon. Okay, so every new moon and full moon, I tell you in the diary what the moon means for you based on your time, date, and place of birth. You just have to cast your chart, which I'll give you all the details of how to do that. So to discover where the energy of this full moon is for you, find your star sign or preferably rising sign below and see which house is involved, and then turn to page 25 and there's a quick guide for you. But since you probably don't have the diary in your hands, or maybe some of you do, hopefully, I'm going to explain it for you. So Aries, this full moon is taking place in your 11th house. So it's time to find a balance between what your friends want and what you want. Taurus, it's taking place in your 10th house. So it's all about finding a balance between your working life and your private life. Gemini rising, it's your 9th house. It's about deciding where you want to be. Do you want to be here or do you want to be there? Home or away? Cancer or Moonchild, it's your 8th house. So it's a turning point for you to do with cash, property, and possessions. Leo, it's a big one for you. It's taking place across your sign and your 7th house, which is your how you come across in the world and your love zone. So it's basically a turning point for you in at least one very important relationship. If you're Virgo or Virgo rising, it's your 6th house. So that's very much about finding a balance between doing the inner work you need to do to stay zen and also doing all the stuff you need to take care of business in the real world, as opposed to the spiritual world, which is still real, but you know what I mean. Libra rising, it's in your 5th house. So for you, it's a turning point to do with a romance, a creative project you're working on, or maybe something to do with a child, your own or someone else's. Scorpio rising, for you, it's a turning point to do with your home life. And again, a bit like Taurus, finding a balance between home life and working life. Sagittarius, it's a turning point for you when it comes to the way you're communicating out in the world. Capricorn, for you, like your opposite sign Cancer, it's about finances, turning the corner financially. For better or worse, I hear you ask, well, that really depends on what's been going on. And, for all of you listening to this, factor in Mercury-Saturn, getting real, being honest, being true, having the difficult conversations. Aquarius, it's in your 1st house. So it's time for you to do a turnaround on the way other people see you, especially if you're Aquarius rising. Finally, Pisces or Pisces rising, it's in your 12th house. So for you, it's the chance for a turning point when it comes to your spiritual life, and also finding a balance between, as with your opposite sign Virgo, between your spiritual life and everything you need to do to take care of life in 3D. So nearly there. Hope you're keeping up. Some full moon forgiveness and questions to ask, again from the diary. What are you releasing this month? Remember, August, now you don't remember because you haven't read the diary, but every month I give you an overview of the month ahead. So remember, August brings double the chances to release and let go. That's because of the 2 full moons. The full moon in Aquarius is great because the Aquarius energy is quite detached. So it's easier to let go of whatever you know you need to. So it does say right below, but you can't if you don't have the diary. If you do have the diary, it's page 179. If you don't have the diary, grab a sheet of paper, fill it in what I'm about to tell you, and then burn it. And then, as I've been saying, join me for a free full moon ritual on Facebook and Instagram, moonmessages.com/FB for Facebook. FB events will get you to register so you get a reminder, and it is free. So really what you want to write down, there are 4 things I've got listed here. The first thing is to write down, who are you forgiving? What are you releasing? Who are you forgiving and what are you releasing? Now, it may well be that it's something to do with what I just mentioned in terms of where the chart is being triggered, or it might just be something completely different. So what are you forgiving? Who are you releasing? Or who are you forgiving? What are you releasing? Okay, another thing you need to write down on a sheet of paper, you can pause this now if you want to and do it now if you want, or do it later. Ask yourself, what lessons have you learned recently? What lessons have you learned recently? And that's a really good question to ask under this full moon, because Aquarius is traditionally ruled by Saturn. Mercury is opposing Saturn at the time of the full moon. Saturn's about learning and lessons. So what lessons have you learned recently? And another question, and this one can be a little bit harder to cope with, because sometimes, we learn these tough lessons and we just wish that life could just be merry and gay, but it's not. It can be a bit of the stench of reality up our nose. And again, Saturn's kind of the stench of reality up our nose. But how will life be different because of these lessons that you've learned? How will life be different because of these lessons that you've learned? Okay. And there is one more. And before I do it, I'm just going to remind you, because I'd love you to buy a copy of my Moonology Diary 2024. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you look on Amazon or in any good bookshop, you can order it and you'll get a ton of amazing bonuses, literally thousands of dollars worth of bonuses, if you order it from www.reclaim2023.com. reclaim2023.com. Now, the reason why we are using that URL is because it's the name of a workshop that by the time you hear this, I will have held at most recently yesterday. I'm holding it the day before this podcast publishes, but you'll be able to get a replay of it if you order the diary this week. So the last question to ask yourself under this super moon and full moon in Aquarius: am I working on keeping my thoughts positive? That's a tough one as well. When, you've got Mercury opposing Saturn, it can be tough to stay mentally positive. And if not, how is that affecting me? How's that affecting me? How's that working out for you, not thinking positively? Can I change? Can I change it if I'm not thinking positively? Talking about mental discipline, it's a really, really good time to start to think I'm going to be more mentally disciplined when it comes to what I'm thinking. So, Venus being retrograde can be a time, which it is right now, can be a time where we're all kind of thinking about the past and the way things used to be, and maybe you're flicking through, old photos, or feeling a bit nostalgic from the past, and things aren't quite what they used to be, or anything like that. That often will come up with Venus retrograde. If that's how you're feeling, is it serving you to reflect constantly on the past? Or can this be a time where you reevaluate, which is Venus retrograde, and turn the corner, which is full moon, and decide that was then, this is now, and this is what I'm going to be doing moving forward. This is the person that I want to evolve into, given everything that has happened or transpired. So there we are, the podcast from the Moonology Diary 2023. Grab the 2024 one before it sells out. Reclaim2023.com, and if you do it this week, that URL won't work forever. If you do it this week, you'll also get free access to my Reclaim 2023 workshop, which will tell you how to make the best of the rest of the year. So thank you for listening. Have a beautiful week, and I will speak to you next week. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Mainly Moonology podcast. If you'd like to stay updated with the moon and moonology and astrology and all the other things we cover, be sure to subscribe to the podcast via Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You'll be notified whenever a new episode is up. Also, it would mean a lot to me and my team if you could leave us a glowing 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice, please. That actually helps more people find us too, which spreads the love and surely also brings you amazing karma for taking a moment to help us out and to help other people find the podcast. Have a great week, and I hope to speak to you next week. Lots of love.